Hi everyone, my name is Hannah Cartwright, and in this video I'll be presenting my senior research paper done in Dr. Bramer's class for senior seminar. The title of my project is called Foreign Language Learning, Online or Face-to-Face Apprehension. I chose this project because I'm very interested in becoming an online language teacher or face-to-face, and I was wondering if learning online causes more or less apprehension than learning face-to-face. First off, I just want to start off by questioning what is language. Language is a system of symbols, words, governed by rules, patterns, common to a community of people. The linguistic challenge. While more than 6,000 languages are spoken in the world today, linguistics believe that 20 years ago that everyone would be speaking one language, and that language is English. The internet definitely has opened a whole new channels of learning language anywhere in the world. China, for one, has a very eager population of wanting their children and future kids to learn English. The Chinese government even invested $182 billion to boost their internet speeds to help students learn English. And that led to thousands of Americans getting jobs online to teach English to these students. According to the British Council in 2013, over 1 billion people worldwide now study English as a second language. The thoughts of learning online has definitely garnished a lot of discussion in a lot of different types of people. Language educators and practitioners have now expanded their views on how to create student-oriented, open, and flexible learning environments. These types of effective learning can include activities online, communicative situations, and role-playing. The central idea is that there can always be drawbacks to learning online, but there may also be benefits as well. For example, researchers suggest that there might actually be a reduction of communication anxiety in an online environment versus face-to-face. This study will investigate learning a language online may reduce communication apprehension. So what is communication apprehension? Communication apprehension is the anxiety associated with oral communication and the ability to speak and listen. In this case, while learning a new language. Anxiety can come across when the student has difficulty speaking with students and groups of people. Speaking seems to be the single most important source of language anxiety. Communication apprehension may also cause stage fright. Studies show that speaking causes learners the most anxiety, making it a challenging barrier to learn language effectively. Stress when learning a new language can disrupt effectiveness on achievement and performance and even the overall learning process. Language learning can be super stressful on students, and that is why it's very important for us to recognize the three main types of anxiety: test anxiety, fear of negative evaluation, and communication apprehension, also known as nervous to communicate. Helping students to overcome this anxiety will be very beneficial to the classroom, teacher, and to their success. It is important for teachers to have a low anxiety classroom atmosphere and also try more approaches to language learning each day. It is important for the teacher to have a good attitude toward their students as well. There's also three important characteristics for a good language instructor, and that is relaxation, openness, originality, and spontaneity. The language learning material given by the teacher should be meaningful to the students, relevant to their daily lives, and of personal interest to the students. Today, technology has the potential to allow teachers to engage with their students in meaningful ways. Relaxation, openness, originality, and spontaneity are the four important characteristics every language teacher should have in their classroom. The language learning material given by the teacher should be meaningful to the students, relevant to their daily life, and of personal interest. Today, technology has the potential to allow teachers to engage with their students in meaningful ways, not just face-to-face classrooms. Social media and gaming provide a new way to engage learners in a non-traditional learning environment. Multiple social media platforms have been utilized for language learning, such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Social media learning takes away the stress of tests and quizzes and all that stuff. Social media provides an opportunity for learners to read and write in English in a low-stakes environment, no stress. Facebook, as an environment for students to learn English, allows students to feel safe and relaxed while learning. This type of learning tool has advantages and also disadvantages. Some positive learning tools would be it strengthens the students' social networking practices. However, the students could become unproductive while playing these games, and instead of actually learning, they'll just be playing online. Video chat rooms are another way to learn language online. The interactive nature of the video chat rooms allows students to create motivation for learning and to also improve their oral communication with native English speakers. Research has examined the efficiency of video calling and practicing and learning English. Researchers examined the progress of language learning for 17 different students who practice English through video calling. Interactive chats allowed the students to increase their language skills by talking and listening on a video chat more regularly. The study showed increased confidence in their oral communication, and students seemed to be more motivated to learn online. Interactive chats and online learning tools may be a viable way for students to reduce their communication apprehension and improve their language. As the demand for learning English online expands around the world, educators and researchers need to focus on the effectiveness of teaching English online while students use the innovative tools to practice and develop their language skills. Therefore, my following hypotheses are ELL students will report lower levels of communication apprehension when communicating English on social media platforms than when communicating English face-to-face classroom. 2. ELL students will report lower levels of communication apprehension when communicating in English on interactive video chat than face-to-face chats. Students over the age of 18, and if they were a non-native English speaker or have taken English courses online or in person at least once, were recruited for this study. I found participants through Facebook, social media, the Into program here at Marshall. I also contacted people at Fairmont State and WVU through their international programs to get more people to take my survey, and also other forms of social media. Participants were required to be, like I said, at least 18 years old, non-native speaker of English, and have participated in at least one type of ELL course. The goal of this study was to measure the participants' demographics, their amount of time spent learning English online or in person, and their communication apprehension in both of these types of classes. Figure 1 here that I just showed you shows the ages of the participants. 34.29% of participants were 30 years or older, 20% of the participants were 25 to 29 years of age, and 31.43 participants were 21 to 24 years of age, and 14.29% of participants were 18 to 20 years of age. Additionally, 45.71% of participants were male, and 51.43% of participants were female, and 2.86% of participants prefer not to identify their gender. Figure 2 here describes the ethnicity of participants. 60% of participants indicated they were white, 14.29% of participants indicated that they were Asian, 5.71% of participants indicated that they were Black or African American, 17.14% of participants indicated that they were Arab and or Middle Eastern, 2.86% of participants chose other, which was then specified to Spanish. Figure 3 describes the country of where all my participants came from. Our chart says 2.86% of participants indicated they were from India, 2.86% of participants indicated that they were from China, another 2.86% of participants indicated they were from Japan, 5.71% of participants indicated they were from Saudi Arabia, 2.86% of participants indicated they were from the USA, 5.71% of the participants indicated they were from Spain, 8.57% of participants indicated that they were from Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, 0% of the students indicated they were from Korea or Mexico, 68.57% chose other. The majority of the participants that came from other were we had 2 from Kuwait, 10 from Russia, 1 from Hungary, 1 from Denmark, 2 from the Philippines, 3 from Germany, 1 from Palestine, 1 from Tunisia, 1 from France, and then 1 from Vietnam. Participants were recruited via convenience samples from the N2 program at Marshall, Fairmont State, and WU, and I also used Facebook to help get my survey out. The survey asked my participants demographic questions and statements from the Foreign Language Classroom Anxiety Scale, which assesses feelings about the communicating in the classroom. Participants were asked to rank the frequency that they have felt communication apprehension in social media platforms and video chat rooms, face-to-face, and group discussions. I also asked 2 open-ended questions. One question I asked was, have you ever felt nervous about communicating in an English course? If so, what made you feel nervous? I also asked, what are some ways that an online course increases or decreases your communication anxiety when learning a new language? The final question I asked was simply like, which do they prefer? Would you rather prefer learning face-to-face or online class? It was whatever their own opinion would be. And I also asked them to please explain why. The survey would take 15 minutes, and after completing the survey, participants were then thanked for their time. We asked our participants what their most recent English course was. 5 participants said online, 13 said a combination of both online and face-to-face, and 16 of them said face-to-face. This graph provides the total communication apprehensive score separated by each course and formatted with each group. The higher the number, the more communication apprehensive, reported by the participants. The online group reported 55.6. The mixed format group, online and face-to-face, scored 47.9%, and the online group reported an average of 53.7%. Figure 5 shows the perception of communication apprehensive as related to the different styles of communication to learn and practice their English from the 3 different groups from the participants. The face-to-face group clearly had the highest communication apprehensive in all categories, thus supporting my hypothesis. The online group had markedly less communication apprehensive in both the interactive video chats and face-to-face chats. The results of my first question were rather interesting. The first question was, have you ever felt nervous about communication in an English course? If so, please tell me what made you feel nervous. One of our participants from our face-to-face group replied, yes, can speak in English, but not that fluent compared to others. But after I spoke, I felt happy when I expressed it. Most responses provided that yes, our participants felt apprehensive in every class. Most of our replies were also spelled wrong by our participants, which shows that they're still acquiring the language. This also shows that doing a study like this is challenging because these students are still learning and practicing their English. So asking such detailed questions can be confusing and they might answer the question wrong. One of our participants who had the both online and face-to-face answered, I cannot say exactly what can make me feel nervous, but I think it can happen when I don't know how to answer in general. I mean, if I'm not familiar with this topic or subject of conversation. If I answer in my native language to this not familiar question, I can say something and try to avoid or explain. But if the question is in English, I will get in trouble. And another participant from the mixture format group replied, I was afraid to make mistakes. Our general response was that apprehensive was mostly felt in all types of classes, that being online or face-to-face. Another one of our participants who only had the online courses responded, if I didn't understand the question well or the context of the narrative. To my understanding, each participant felt some apprehension in every type of English class, that being online, face-to-face, or even if they had both. Apprehension was felt. The results for my next question was, if applicable, what are some ways that an online course increases or decreases your communication apprehension in speaking English? One of our participants answered, increases. A written chat or forum is more stressful as it doesn't disappear just like an oral does. They were concerned because their written words remained on screen, which can be stressful for them. Another participant answered, again, I didn't even understand the question. A lot of answers were like that because, like I said, this results were hard to find because these students are still acquiring the language and they could not write maybe everything they wanted to say, or they could not understand my questions in detail. So that part was pretty interesting as well to me. This research study was attempting to evaluate the amount of communication apprehension that English language learners feel with different types of courses, that being online, face-to-face, and or both. I proposed these two hypotheses. One, that ELL students report lower levels of communication apprehension when communicating in English on social media platforms than when communicating face-to-face. Two, ELL students will report lower levels of communication apprehension when communicating in English on interactive video chat than face-to-face chats. Did my data support or not support my two hypotheses? To some degree, the first hypothesis was not supported, but the second hypothesis was supported by this data. The study began by determining the age of our participants. Our participants' ages were pretty interesting. The more older students, they preferred face-to-face, and the younger they were, they preferred online. The more older students liked face-to-face, and the more younger didn't, is what our data said. The majority of the people preferred face-to-face classes. A few younger participants preferred online, but only a few preferred the mixture of both online and face-to-face. This was surprising to me because I expected a lot of people to prefer a mixture of both formats. However, not surprisingly, most people in the mixture and face-to-face format prefer the kind of course that they had most recently took. This is of course, the format that they were most familiar with and just fresh out most familiar. Interestingly, no one who said they recently took an online course indicated that they prefer this style of instruction. Perhaps they had a negative experience with this online format. Who knows? In fact, the group of people who indicated that they prefer the online format had most recently taken a mixture format of courses. The response on the communication apprehension scale was pretty surprising to me. It was a shock because I thought way more people would feel apprehensive communicating in person than online. However, that was not the case. More people felt more apprehensive online. I hypothesized that students would feel less apprehensive online than in person, but the data did not support this hypothesis. When we look at the particular styles of classroom activities to learn and practice English, these results supported my second hypothesis. As you can see in figure 5 that I showed, most of the online activities include video chats, which is where all of our participants felt less apprehensive. Our participants felt most apprehensive in face-to-face chats. Most open-ended question responses provided that yes, our participants felt apprehensive. And like I said, most of our replies were also spelled wrong, or they replied, I don't know what you're saying, and I did not realize that this study would be that difficult to ask questions, because I honestly forgot that, well, these students are learning English. Like, they're still acquiring the language. So it's pretty hard if you don't understand what I'm trying to ask, or if they do understand and they don't know how to respond, or they don't know how to respond with everything that they want to say. The language barrier really made this study hard to evaluate my data for all those reasons. However, it did really open my eyes that communicating online can be more nerve-wracking for students than in person. In conclusion, I was not surprised by the preference for face-to-face learning. It seemed most of our participants preferred face-to-face, and that online language learning does stress a lot of students out, way more than I could have ever expected. After reading these responses, I remembered my boyfriend, who is from Europe, and he's an English language learner, and all the situations where he would make me check his grammar before making a post on social media. For example, he would post a picture on Instagram and he would ask me so urgently, Hannah, is this all spelled right? All that stuff, is the grammar correct? It would really stress him out online way more than he ever would be in person, because he talks nonstop. Has no anxiety speaking in person, but when it comes to social media and online situations, he gets pretty anxious. And it's just like one of our participants said before, that learning face-to-face makes them more nervous, because once the words are out there, they're never going to be deleted. As in, if you say something in person, it goes away. But if you say something on the internet, it stays there. So all your mistakes can stay on the internet. Even though my results shocked me, I can honestly say I agree with all my participants. Learning a language is learned best face-to-face with real interactions. Just as I learned Spanish last summer when I spent a month in Madrid. It was way easier. Learning a language is all about communicating and interacting with people around you. Although learning a language online is becoming more prevalent these days, it remains quite challenging and not entirely as effective as learning face-to-face. Thank you all for listening. I really hope you enjoyed my project as much as I did.